Hello, everyone. Welcome to Painting Crafty. For those who might be new, my name is Melanie, and I'm glad you're here. For my returning people, I'm so glad you're coming in weekly, practicing your drawing and practicing your painting. Today, we're going to be working on the birthday flower, the rose. Every month has a flower, at least one. I think there might be actually kind of more often, you'll see like 2 different flowers for each birthday month. And since it's May, we thought we would get started on this one so you would have a chance to make one if there's somebody that you would like to gift a rose card to for their birthday. And this one would make a great wedding card as well. All you have to do is change up the words, add something else, and you could use it for that. And it also makes a delightful little picture to hang up in your special little spot. Well, let's get started. I'm going to show you the drawing steps. Now, there's not a lot of drawing on this one, so I'm just going to be drawing some ovals, adding some shapes in there, and then building on top of that. And of course, the leaves make it look pretty. So I'll be showing you how I add those as well. So let's see if I can't get my camera to switch here. Oh, there we go. For those of you who might want a little help drawing, I do have a Ko-fi page. That's where it's rather like a Patreon page. That's where you're going to find where I have a subscription there for all of my tracers that I do for my YouTube drawings. You're going to find them there. It's very reasonably priced. Plus, if you'd just like to support my channel over there, buy me a cup of coffee, as they like to say on that page, you most certainly can do that. That's where you're going to find it. The link will be down in the description box if you'd like to check that out. Well, let's get started and take a look. Now, I just started with a simple circle. I'm doing a square. So if depending on what your shape that you might be doing, maybe if you're doing more of a rectangle shape, perhaps maybe a rectangle inside of there. So a rectangle and a rectangle. We have done some of those in our other draw-alongs for our flowers. There is a playlist for flowers. So if you would like to check out loose flowers, you might want to check out that playlist. I'll put that in the description box as well, so you might be able to find it there easily. Well, this one not only has a little bit of watercolor on there, it also is a little mixed media as well. This is where I'm going to say, take out your art materials, whatever you might have, and play a little bit. These cards don't take long to do, so experiment, do more than one, and work with your colors, see what kind of colorations you might get. Now, this little rose group, it was done more of in the pale peaches and the corals. This one, I have more of that red, rosy, violety shades inside of there and a little bit darker green. So you can do them in all different values and hues of your roses as well. This one says happy birthday. Great handwriting. If you take the time to make a handmade card to someone special, it really does make it a special gift, even if it's just the card. Well, let's take a look at how I started. I started with a circle. I just had a lid. Find something that's round that might work for you. I just centered it and drew a lightly handed circle around. Because I'm going to be erasing most of it, I'm just using it as a guide to build my flowers around. So once I have that centered, you'll need to kind of figure out what might make a good composition. And I've often found that doing the larger rows off to the side, either which direction, placing a bigger one, and then placing at least the 3 more off to each side. And you could also tuck in some little filler flowers in there too to fill up your space. But that will look good. So then you it's equalized the weight. So I put a larger one there, and then I put my 3 off to the side. It's a normal grouping that I did. Now you can also throw a few little buds in there too to fill up your space. But what I'm going to start with is I'm going to just lightly place where I want to put my roses. So to do that, let's change the screen so you can see the whole thing. All right, let's take a look where we can start. So I'm going to start off to my side here, and I'm just going to lightly pencil in this shape right here for my big flower. I'm going to put my next one here. I'm going to want part of it behind my other flower, so it looks like it's kind of tucked in behind there. So I'm going to fill up that space here. Then I'm going to be adding another one off to the side here. And again, I want this big one to kind of be my centerpiece. So I'm going to leave it to be the show. She's going to be the one that's out front. This one I'm thinking I'm going to have behind. And this one here could be sitting in front of this one a little bit. You can also vary the sizes of these. So they're maybe some are a little bit bigger than the other. I'm just doing a very informal drawing. Nothing too complicated about adding that on there. Now I'm going to take my gum eraser, my little eraser to lighten up my lines. This works great for this style of eraser. And I'm going to make sure I have that circle shape pretty much gone. I'm not wanting to see that in my end at all. I don't mind seeing a little bit of pencil marks, but some are good to erase, and that one would be a great one to erase. Now, once I have my little configuration of my flowers on there, you can hand draw your leaves in if you would like to have a better idea of where to place your leaves. Now, leaves, again, it looks nice to have a little bit of a grouping. So here there were the 3 larger ones, and then they're getting smaller as they come up. And I'm using my circle to kind of go around my area. So it's just going to frame it nicely as I go around. This one here is anchored with 3. If you're going to put clusters of leaves in, it's nice to have them going different directions. So this one is going up, this one's facing towards me, this one's going off to the left. So those are kind of some things to keep in mind is when you're placing your leaves that they have some different movement by having different directions and different sizes as they go up. Also with watercolor, you're going to notice that some are lighter and some are darker. That will add that little bit of dimension to your picture. So I can lightly draw these in if I would like to. I'm going to also erase my circle line up here a little bit so it's just very light. I will still be able to see it and use it as a guide, but it's not going to be a part of my drawing or my painting when I'm done. So when I come in here, I'm going to be doing, I call those my football leaves. They're going to have a smaller end here, have a belly, and then come to a point. So I'm going to be coming this way, out this way. These are going to be my bigger ones. So that one's traveling that way. Now I'm going to make sure I come off to the side, and I can make it look like it's tucked behind. So it kind of looks like a little rabbit ears now. And then I can pop up and then travel. So here would be a nice grouping of 3. And then I'm going to look where my circle line is here, and I can add in a few more. I'm going to be getting smaller, and I can loosen my hand. I don't have to be exact with my shapes, and I might not even follow them when I'm actually putting them in with my watercolor. So these are just a little bit of a guide to go by. I'm going to be throwing in a few in here as well into the center of my circle, coming around. And then I'm going to be laying them down here. So I'm going to start with a bigger one here. That's going to be tucked behind my big old rose here. And I'm going to be coming this direction and then laying in. Now again, I may just not even have a strong line there when I finish. Now this is where I wanted to create a little bit larger grouping of leaves. So I'm going to start big here for my biggest one, and then bring one closer, like towards me, and then off to the side. Now this one was the biggest, middle, and small. That's just how it worked or fit into this piece of paper. Now let's come up this way. So I want my angle or want to be able to follow that circle. So I'm going to do the same thing, start in here, start with my one here, work it around, keeping in mind that I'm going to be traveling around the circle and just lightly sketching some of these little shapes in. Now I'm going to go ahead and write my word roses in there, and that will give me an idea of where I want to put my words. So if I want to bring some of my leaves down into my open circle spot, I will at least know where my words are so I can go ahead and leave some room for that. I'm just going to be able to freehand this, the wording. I don't consider myself a great letterer. It's one of those processes that it's very much like drawing. This skill of freehand lettering is very much like drawing. So the more you practice it, the better you're going to get. And what looks good is if you can change your writing from like uppercase, lowercase, change some of the sizes. So even though this is like the S, the E is going to be smaller and then the S will fit in there. It looks nice to be able to nuzzle them in somehow. So I made this word a lot bigger than I did last time. I had more room here. If you're going to write happy birthday, this is a time to look to see where your birthday, where you might want to put your greeting on there. If you're going to make it a wedding card, perhaps you just put the word love in there. So there's many different ways you can use this card. All right, we have our general shapes in, and that's all there is to the general shapes. Now let's go ahead and start our watercolor. So for these flowers, I'm going to be creating those circle cylinder shapes. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to flood my first circle. I'm going to make it glisten with water. So I'm not looking for a lot of puddles, but I do want that paper to be wet. And I'm going to be doing a wet on wet technique. This time around, I'm going to be using, I think I'll use those pinks and those roses. That's such a pretty color. I'm going to come in and I'm going to be just setting up my palette off to the side. Let's see if I can't get that figured out so we can see everything in here. We can see the colors, see what I'm painting, get that all worked together. Okay, maybe that'll work together. All right, let's start with this rose color. So my paper is wet and I'm going to come in and I'm going to create a shape that this would be the middle of my center. Now this red color does have a lot of movement. You can see that color is just wanting to travel right across there. Different colors behave differently when they're going to be doing this technique. This red moves a lot. It's kind of explosive on your paper. I'm going to stop right there. I still want a little bit of white inside of my rose. So I'm going to let that dry and see where I end up. Now remember, watercolor always dries a little lighter than it after it dries. So I'm going to be adding a few more layers. I'm going to come up here and add some water to this one as well. I don't want to do this one or this one right away because then that would make my paper too wet next to it and all my colors would blend together. So I want to leave a little bit of room for my color to dry and stay put. Okay, so we're going to come up and now this is glistening. It's not like puddles on there, and I'm going to do that same kind of process where I'm going to tap my center and I'm doing C strokes, backward C, forward C, and carrying it along. Now, I don't have to feel like I have to follow my pencil lines exact. And again, I'm going to leave some room for my flower to develop. Now, since this is dried a little bit, I'm going to come in and add just a little bit more darker color. I'm just picking it right out of the pan color. I'm not necessarily even mixing it over here. So it's a thicker consistency of paint, and my water has had a chance to settle down a little bit. And I'm going to pop in a little bit more color, but then I'm going to let that rust a little bit and see where we end up. And then I'm going to come back to this one, add a little bit more color. Okay. All right, those look very dark. I can come in now with a little bit of wet, tap it. Whoops, I dropped right on there. I'm going to pick that water up. You can do that. If you accidentally drop something or water on your paper, you can go in with, take your brush, give it a squeeze, and then you can lift some of that color as well. And I'm going to do a little bit of lifting of my color here. This is a lot of play and just coming up with different patterns and playing with your colors. So this is a good time to see how your colors work and push and pull some colors, lay some colors down. Don't be afraid. Give it a chance and see how it all ends up. All right, let's work. I'm going to have to come up and work a little bit on my green since I need some time for that orange, or not the orange, I was thinking coral in my head. I need some time for that pink to dry. So I'm going to be picking up my lightest shade of green. Watercolor, you always start light and then work your way dark. So now my leaves are dry, but I'm going to be working, I'm going to come right on in and add that green onto some of these leaves. So this is my lightest shade, and I'm not even necessarily going to do them all. And if I touch a little bit of that red, or touch that spot where my flower, in that red will float right up into my green. And I kind of like that look where that water will bring that color right up into that next leaf. I like that look. So we're going to come here. I'm going to do one here. So this would be kind of my lightest shade of green. Now I can also take a look, step back, and now this is a time where I can add some just really light leaves as a background. I can water this down even more, and I can come in and just stroke some simple shapes where I didn't even draw, and I can add in some leaves that are just going to be looking like they're in the background. They're going to be very light and transparency, and it's a great look to be adding some depth into your painting. Now these ones can also be painted over as well. So I put these on here. I'll be dropping in another darker one on top of that. So I'm filling in my background, kind of adding some shapes that would be colorations that may not or may be leaves that are going to be in the end showing stronger. Okay, we have that in. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit more green. I'm going to pick up a darker green, and I'm going to be popping that color in too. So I'm going to come in, add that next shade of green. Because watercolor is that translucent color, I'm going to be able to see a difference in these little leaves. I'm going to try to keep my hand loose and not be too tight with my color if I can. Maybe I can even get some of that red to run from that one into there. You can also pick up a little bit of red and intentionally put that into those leaves as well. So if I want to take up a little bit of that reddish color, I can come in and I can tap like at the base of those leaves and see if that color will travel throughout my leaf. I do like that look. I love that little bit of red inside of there. I'm going to loosen that up a little bit, tap it with a little bit of water, see if I can't get that color to blend together. All right, let's change up just a little bit more of this darker color here. And I can be adding layers onto these, so just because I lay them in, they don't have to be done. They can just be the beginning stages of my leaves, and I can come back and add a few more details. All right, so now those two roses are pretty dry. Let's pop over and do the other ones. Now I think I'm going to try to change up the tonality just a little bit. So I'm going to be putting some water into here, and I might move over just a little bit on the purple shade of my color and add in a little bit more of a purplish red and see how that looks. Okay, so let's add a little bit more water here. Now I did lose a lot of my white there. I didn't keep a lot of that white. It is kind of a hard little balance sometimes of knowing how fast your color is going to flow together. But I can also, I'm planning on doing a little bit of mixed media on this, so I can bring some of my whites back in that way. But it is kind of a good practice to try to see if you can't leave a little bit of the white of the paper showing through. Okay, so this one's fairly dry here. I'm going to come in and accentuate this area now with my little bit of a darker red and see if I can't get a little bit more definition onto that flower. I need to be a little careful. If I touch this too much, that's all going to be blending in there. I'm going to come over here. Getting those contrasts, you know, leaving some of the light. But like I said, I'm going to be coming in with a little bit of mixed media. So we'll see what happens. Okay, so that's running in there pretty good. All right, let's see what I can do for my background color. Since my flowers are turning out pretty dark, I know I would need to put something lighter in the background just to be able to give it some contrast. So I'm going to be coming in with just a real light wash of color in my background. I'm still using that same color as my my roses, but I have a lot more water in it. And I'm just going to skate that color around in my background. Now this is all just subjective in how you would like to to create your background. I will be popping a little bit of that purplishy color in there too, just to add a little bit more interest. Okay, it's looking pretty. Let's add a little bit more of this purple. See where we end up with that. Remember, you can also take your toilet paper. We've been using the toilet paper in some of our landscape backgrounds to create create some clouds. That would also look great for creating kind of a soft blended background as well. Let's see if I have some of that. This might be a little bit of toilet paper here. It's like looking, my desk is always so full of stuff. Let's see if I can't pick up a little bit of that color. So that would just kind of melt that background a little bit together, kind of create a soft little texture. That might be a nice contrast against my more colorful roses. We'll see what that looks like. Hopefully you can see that where it's a little bit softer in the background. See what happens. I'm going to take my dryer and dry this and we'll see what we get. Since we're kind of working on a mixed media piece today, I thought I would bring some gouache out. I don't often do that, but I'm thinking it might be kind of fun to let's use a little bit of gouache. Now, gouache is like an opaque watercolor. You might be using some gouache in your paintings already. If you're using like a custom color that is got a lot of white in it, it probably has some gouache in it. I'm just going to water this down off to the side here. And I'm going to be trying some of this and let's see what we can get going on with that. So let's pick up a little bit of this and add some white into these. It's going to be translucent as well, or a little bit transparent. I'm just creating the same kind of texture with this gouache that I did with my watercolor, of creating that center line and then adding those forward and backward C's. It's also going to kind of reactivate that watercolor a little bit behind there too. So it's going to be blending together. We'll see how that works. I'm going to give that a dry and see what we end up with. I can also lay more watercolor on top of this as well. So let's get this dry and see where we end up. Now the gouache I'm using today is just the Master's Touch titanium white. It's not super expensive. I believe you can find this at Michael's or Hobby Lobby, one of the two. And that's where I picked up some of the gouache there. You're gonna have to let me know in the comments what you might think of the technique or the idea of using a little bit of gouache, and if you've ever used it and if you like it. Let's go ahead and pick up a little bit of that red again. I'm gonna give this a tap, and I'm gonna be laying a little bit of that over the top as well. And like I said, I'm doing a little bit of mixed media, so I'm bringing out the stuff and I'm just playing and trying some new things. And we're going to see what it works. Now this kind of has a little bit of flavor of doing acrylic paint too. So it's kind of a mixture of it, but I kind of like the look. I think it looks good. Let's add a little bit. And that reminds me too, you know, once you start these roses, they can be done in acrylic paint. They do not have to be done in watercolor. So if acrylic paint is something you feel more comfortable doing or you enjoy doing, get those out. I know there's quite a few of you that use markers and glitter pens and all those things. All great materials to create with. So use what you like to use and play with this. All right, I want to darken up a little bit on those leaves. So I'm going to take a little bit of this green here. I believe this one is called Hooker's Green. It's a beautiful green. Now you can also add just a tiny bit of red to your green, and that's going to neutralize it. It's going to tone it down just a little bit and give it a beautiful green too. And I'm going to come in and add a little bit more interest or darkness on some of these, not all, especially the ones that are coming towards me. I wanted to add a little bit more depth to those areas. You could also use this as a shadow area as well. Add a little bit more brown or red to it. It's going to get a nice little brown look to it. Let's have to go up here a little bit. And you can add, even use this as a little bit of shadow color to your background. feels by adding a little bit of that brownish green color. That's just adding a little bit more vintage quality to my painting. I'm scrubbing my brush a little bit sideways as well and adding to the texture of my background that way. So I'm kind of liking that. I like that look. I like a little bit of that rustic flavor of adding on to that part of my background. Okay, now this is another time too, you can decide how much do you want to beef up your colors and your background. Each little layer you add is going to add a little bit more character to your painting. All right, I think I'm happy with that. I'm going to be done with my watercolors and I'm going to be moving on to a little bit more mixed media elements. Now I love using a General's charcoal soft pencil. It gives a great line. These are fairly inexpensive. They usually come in a set of 3, but I love using this pencil. I like holding it back a little ways. I like coming in and creating line work with those. And I'm going to be going past my leaves and not necessarily following. You could come in and just even do charcoal pencil leaves and adding them as another dimension into your drawing or your painting. I love mixed media. It's just fun, relaxing, a process for me, and experimenting with all of the things. I love lots of different art materials, so this is a great way to get them out and use them. I'm not going to be creating like a color book idea, so I'm not going to be doing them all, but I'm going to be adding some creative line with this great pencil work. Those are some of the dark lines. I can also come in with this peeled China marker. The China marker is a great kind of a soft, almost a color crayon, chalky feeling to get a beautiful white line without being so stark, with a harsh line. Now, I like using the Uniball pens and the white ink, but that is going to be more of a harsh, more of a direct ink line, where this is more of a soft line, which creates just a different element that you can't get with the Uniball pen. Love me some Uniball pen, but this one adds a whole different element. I can also come in here and add some leaves in with just the white, and they'll be kind of ghosty shadows that are back in my background, and I can overlay that and create another texture in my background without having such strong textures. A great little pencil, or inexpensive pencil, to bring into your mixed media cabinet if you enjoy doing that. It's a great little pencil to add in to your toolbox. We have those in. I'm going to be using a little bit of some color pencils too. I know I'm bringing out all the things tonight, but that's kind of fun to do this when you can always just set aside some of your elements that you like to use and have them sitting there off to the side. I have a box that just keeps a lot of my mixed media items in, my pencil box that has it over there, and I will have those sitting off to the side. And sometimes I just try to keep myself regulated to those. But the Prismacolor pencils do give a beautiful line. And I'm going to do some scribbling with this. Now I'm going to go past my leaf work. This is a purple. It's an eggplantish kind of purple. Beautiful shade. And it goes well with these flowers. And I'm just going to be adding some scribbly bits to some of these leaves. Okay, I have lots of little scribble bits in there. I'm really liking that. I'm going to be using a gold pen to do the lettering for my card. I really liked how that popped. So I'm going to be using this is a Deco Art Premium pen. It's gold. Now, this is a oil-based marker, so it's going to stay dry a little wet longer than normal. I do wish this one had a smaller point on it, but it doesn't. But I keep on using it because that's the one I have. And I'm just going to be going ahead and following what I had drawn. You can do even more of kind of a script lining if you would like. You could thicken one end, or as you go down, you could thicken those points if you would like to do that as well, to even add a little bit more character to your lettering. Don't usually attempt to do a drop shadow, but I'm going to try a drop shadow on my lettering and see if that brings out my gold even a little bit more. So on the back sides of my letters, I'm going to be I'm going to be dropping in this shadow of a line work right behind it and see if that makes a difference. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, as they say. Well, I think it definitely made a difference. I will definitely try it again and see how that works out. I'm thinking I want to do just a little bit of splitter splatters in my background. So I'm going to be choosing a little bit of that brighter red color again, coming back in, a little bit thicker consistency. And I'm going to be adding a few little splitters, I believe, just to add another layer of interest in my background. And I'm thinking I like it. I think I like it. Well, that is it for how I'm going to be showing some simple mixed media flowers this evening. There is so many ways to do these flowers, and they are just fun to do. Once you do one, you're going to want to do another one. So take your art materials out if you would like to do mixed media. And you can do them just in watercolor too. This is an example of just a watercolor one where I just built it with using the watercolor and adding the layers. So you can do a very pretty one without doing all the mixed media. But I wanted to try a mixed media one this evening just to give you an idea of what you can create if you want to play around a little bit more with your paints and your application of your roses. So get your pencils and your paper and your watercolor and your art and your favorite art materials and make something fun. Well, that is it for now, my friends, and hopefully you will come back and see me again. I'd love to hear your comments. Let me know what you think about the gouache, if you think you might want to try it, if it might be interesting to you. And give me a thumbs up if you like the video, and if you would like, ring the bell, because that will give you YouTube will send you notifications when I put up a new video. It's a great little service to be able to see what I'm doing. Thanks everyone for joining me, and hopefully you'll come back and see me again.